In 2018, a neuroscientist scanned the brain of a convicted murderer and found something that changed everything we thought we knew about evil. What he discovered wasn't a monster. It was a pattern. Welcome back to Antisocial Patterns. Today, we're not talking about a specific case. We're going deeper. We're asking the question that keeps psychologists, criminologists, and detectives up at night. Why do people commit crimes? Every year, over 10 million arrests are made in the United States alone. Behind every single one is a human brain that made a choice. But here's what most people don't understand. That choice? It's not random. It's predictable. And the patterns hidden inside the criminal mind reveal something uncomfortable about all of us. Let's start with your brain. Specifically, this part right here. The prefrontal cortex. This is your brain's control center. It handles impulse control, decision-making, and understanding consequences. It's the difference between thinking about punching your boss and actually doing it. Now here's where it gets chilling. In 2000, a 40-year-old schoolteacher with no criminal history suddenly developed an obsession with child pornography. He started making advances toward his stepdaughter. When caught, he showed zero remorse. Psychologists labeled him a pedophile. He was sentenced to therapy. But then, something strange happened. The night before his sentencing, he went to the emergency room complaining of severe headaches. Doctors found a massive brain tumor pressing directly on his prefrontal cortex. They removed the tumor. His obsessions? Gone. Completely. He went back to his normal life. Until a year later, when the urges returned, they scanned his brain again. The tumor had grown back. Remove the tumor. Remove the criminal behavior. The pattern was undeniable. Studies show that damage to the prefrontal cortex increases violent behavior by over 200%. This isn't about evil, this is biology. In fact, researchers at the University of Pennsylvania found that 20% of death row inmates have significant frontal lobe damage. The question becomes, are they criminals or victims of their own biology? But biology isn't where the story starts. It starts here. Dr. Bruce Perry, a child psychiatrist, studied the brains of abused children for over 30 years. What he found was heartbreaking. Children who experience chronic abuse, neglect, or trauma, their brains physically change. The amygdala, the fear center, becomes hyperactive. The hippocampus, responsible for memory, shrinks. And that prefrontal cortex we talked about, it never fully develops. 84% of serial killers suffered severe childhood abuse. This isn't an excuse, but it is a pattern. By the time they reach adulthood, their brains are wired differently. They perceive threats where there are none. They can't regulate emotions. And crucially, they struggle to feel empathy. Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Aileen Wuornos, John Wayne Gacy, every single one reported severe childhood trauma. Okay, so biology and childhood play a role. But millions of people have brain injuries. Millions suffer abuse. They don't all become criminals. So what's the difference? Let me tell you about an experiment. In 1971, Stanford University psychologist Philip Zimbardo took 24 normal, psychologically healthy college students and randomly assigned them roles: prisoners and guards. Within 48 hours, the guards became sadistic. They forced prisoners to strip naked. They made them clean toilets with their bare hands. They subjected them to psychological torture. These weren't criminals. These were students. psychology majors, people who would have helped an old lady cross the street the week before. The experiment had to be shut down after just 6 days because the guards had become too cruel. Zimbardo's conclusion: put good people in bad situations and you create bad behavior. The situation matters more than the person. This explains why ordinary people commit atrocities during war, why riots turn neighbors into looters, why corporate executives commit fraud. The criminal isn't always born. Sometimes they're created by circumstance. But here's the part that should terrify you. Every criminal, from the shoplifter to the serial killer, believes they're justified. Psychologists call it moral disengagement. It's the brain's way of protecting itself from guilt. And we all do it. When someone steals from a corporation, they tell themselves they're rich, they won't miss it. When someone cheats on their taxes, the government wastes money anyway. When someone commits violence, they deserved it. Psychologist Albert Bandura studied this for decades. He found that criminals don't see themselves as evil. They reconstruct reality to make their actions acceptable. The uncomfortable truth? The same mental process you use to justify cutting someone off in traffic, a killer uses to justify murder. It's the same mechanism, just amplified. Now let's talk about the one thing everyone gets wrong. Sociopaths. You probably think sociopaths are rare. You'd be wrong. Roughly 4% of people, 1 in 25, have antisocial personality disorder. That's 12 million people in the US alone. And here's the kicker. Most of them never commit crimes. Studies show that 4 to 12% of CEOs exhibit psychopathic traits. That's 4 times higher than the general population. Why? Because the traits that make someone a successful psychopath in prison, charm, manipulation, lack of empathy, risk-taking, are the same traits that make someone successful in business. Same brain, same patterns, different environment. Neuroscientist James Fallon accidentally discovered he was a psychopath while studying brain scans. He was researching the brains of serial killers when he noticed something. One of the scans showed the exact same pattern: reduced activity in the orbital cortex, the area responsible for empathy and moral decision-making. That scan? It was his own. He had every biological marker of a killer: the genetics, the brain structure, even a family history of violence. But Fallon never killed anyone. He became a successful scientist with a family. What made the difference? His childhood. He was loved, supported, given opportunities. His biology was a loaded gun, but his environment never pulled the trigger. So after everything we've learned, here's the question that matters. Are criminals responsible for their actions? If your brain is damaged, if you were abused as a child, if your genetics predispose you to violence, are you truly choosing to commit crime? The legal system says yes. Neuroscience says it's complicated. Here's what we know. Free will exists on a spectrum. Some people have more choice than others. A person with a healthy brain raised in a loving home has more control than someone with frontal lobe damage raised in chaos. But understanding why someone commits crime doesn't mean excusing it. Because here's what we can't forget. Behind every crime, there's a victim. Someone who didn't choose to be hurt. Someone who deserves justice. The patterns in the criminal mind help us predict behavior, prevent crime, rehabilitate offenders, but they don't erase accountability. So here's the pattern we've uncovered today. Biology, brain structure affects behavior. Environment, childhood trauma rewires the brain. Situation, context can turn good people bad. Psychology, we all rationalize our actions. Choice, free will exists, but it's limited. Crime isn't one thing. It's a combination of biology, psychology, and circumstance colliding at the wrong moment. Some people are born with risk factors. Some are shaped by trauma. Some are pushed by situations beyond their control. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. The line between criminal and law-abiding citizen, it's thinner than you think. Understanding the criminal mind isn't about sympathy. It's about prevention. If we know the patterns, the biological red flags, the environmental triggers, the psychological mechanisms, we can intervene before someone crosses the line. We can provide better mental health care, support abuse survivors, redesign prison systems to rehabilitate instead of just punish. Because the brain that commits crime, it's still a human brain. And sometimes it can be changed. Here's what I want to know from you. Do you think criminals are born or made? Is it biology, environment, or choice? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this video made you think differently about crime, hit that subscribe button. We analyze the antisocial patterns behind the world's most infamous cases every single week. Next week, we're breaking down a case that will make you question everything we talked about today. You won't want to miss it. Until then, stay curious about the patterns.